The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We'll wait just a couple more minutes, see if we get a few more people, and then we'll get started. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. My name is Lindsay Naratka. I am the Sustainability Manager for the City of Boca Raton. Also with us today, we have Zachary Beer, who is your Municipal Services Director, who will be speaking about our sanitation services and efforts they're taking during COVID-19 to keep their staff and our residents safe. We're also very excited to have Mary Wozni with us from the Solid Waste Authority, who's going to be giving us a virtual tour of their facilities. So before we get started, just a quick housekeeping. We are recording this. Everybody is on mute. If you have questions or comments, there is a question box. If you want to type in questions as we're speaking, we can address those at the end of the presentation. So I wanted to give a little bit of background on why it is that we are doing this presentation. The city has a sustainability action plan that was released in 2019. Within that plan, there are targets related to solid waste, including reducing the waste that we're producing, as well as increasing the amount that we are recycling. We also have overall targets for greenhouse gas emission reductions, and addressing our solid waste is a big way that we can address our greenhouse gas emissions. So the Office of Sustainability is approaching these targets through the 3 R's, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle, and in that order. So reducing very simply means that we're reducing the amount of waste that we're producing in the first place. So there's lots of different strategies that we can talk about to do this, one of which is reducing the use of disposable single-use items and replacing those with reusable items. The Office of Sustainability and Gumbo Limbo Nature Center last month, in recognition of Plastic Free July, hosted a webinar called Beyond the Bag, in which we talk about strategies for reducing waste and also addressed how we can do this during the era of COVID-19, safe ways to reduce single-use plastics. That webinar is available on the city's website, and I'll put a link to it in the chat if you wanted to go back and watch that. The second step in the reduce, reuse, recycle process is reusing. So reusing just means that whatever you can't reduce, you can find a second, third use for it. So the city promotes reusing through hosting composting workshops, putting composting information on our website, and doing fun activities like our virtual Earth Week activities, including our retro trash and show in honor of the 50th Earth Day. Finally, what waste we do produce, we want to recycle as much of it as we possibly can. SWA's website has really great resources for figuring out how and where to recycle things, as do our sanitation pages. And whether or not those things can be recycled in our blue and yellow bins, or if they can be taken to a collection site. So once we've gone through this process and we've reduced as much as we can, reused as much as we can, and recycled as much leftover as possible, then we have things that need to be thrown away. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, what that means. When something is thrown away, where does it go and what happens to it? But before we get to that, I wanted to pass it to Zach Beer to talk a little bit about our sanitation services.
Hi, thanks for giving me the time to speak today. I really appreciate it. So a special thanks to take a moment for especially our city sanitation services and those in general, because I think it's always an underappreciated service. And just like the rest of the first responders, I really took our sanitation folks and the sanitation solid waste people in general as first responders, because from day one, they all showed up and they were ready to continue to provide services and provide a critical need to the community in taking on this challenge. And especially right at the beginning, there were a lot of unknowns for everybody, but unknowns especially in the waste collection business, just because there's a lot of interaction with items and folks being out with waste. So we gathered as much information as possible and came out with strategies. And I can say so far to date, we have been both very fortunate and I apologize for that, and careful as we've continued to deliver service, and we've kept our sanitation staff healthy and continued to serve the city. So talking about a few of those strategies and what we've done as we've moved from our very limited knowledge as into being able to make COVID-19 part of our everyday routine and making sure we're still working to serve the public and keep our public works functions.
Zach, you should have control of the slides as well.
All right, good to know. So talking a little bit about physical measures, I think it's important, and something that I jumped on early in April, back before there was some decisive information and significant scientific information, that I put out a notice to all of our employees and contractors working at municipal services that they were required to wear some face covering, not necessarily a mask, because although it hadn't come out at the county or state level for adoption, I made it a requirement for a simple reason. And the reason being was I had kind of witnessed in a mini experiment in our office staff that we had brought some people back in for some of their essential duties, and noticed that as they started to integrate and go back into the office, week one, they took it very seriously. Week two, it became more normalized. And then, as the weeks rolled on, we had to remind them. So a mask is a very simple reminder, a very strong visual reminder for everybody that everything is not okay, and that we need to be aware of our social distancing and all of the other guidelines that have been provided. So even if it's just a physical reminder, aside from all the other barriers and protection it provides, it's something that I took very seriously, and it's something that I think has helped significantly over the duration of the pandemic. On top of that, we instituted a lot of the basics of making sure that we got right. So rearranging workstations for employees. So I've had some employees that can work remotely go home, so we can have specific designated offices for those employees that have to report to work, so they can feel safe in their space and feel safe reporting to work. In addition to that, we have 46, anywhere from 46 to 52 employees reporting. So staggering those shifts, start times of where they punch in, all of the little details that now we've had to pay attention to of how do we get folks into work, into their trucks and safely on their routes, and make sure we're keeping them as safe as possible. Then another big benefit that I've seen, which has actually been a helpful way for me to communicate with staff, is we've provided a single conference line number. And when we do our bi-weekly operations calls, all of the sanitation staff reports to their truck in the morning and then calls the line. So it took a little bit on the first 2 or 3 times to get used to it, but now I can effectively communicate with all of the sanitation staff at once, with them safely calling into a conference line and getting up-to-date information. Whereas before we had to have chains of text and emails, and I see that as a lasting benefit on any emergency that we deal with, of being able to directly communicate with everybody. It's been a big benefit. And then also just making sure we're being smart about canceling or postponing internal meetings. A challenge that we've had is trying to hire people during this time. So we've taken measures to do outdoor interviews with social distance interviews with masks on, and our staff has been really flexible of taking on those challenges to still be able to operate. So let's talk about a few of the things that we implemented. Right away, I got on with some of our other technical staff, and especially in the very early stages, we were looking at what could we do. So we went out and bought 2 Energy Star high efficiency dryers with steam sanitizing cycles. So staff was able to either have reusable garments, masks, some of their safety gloves and PPE to be able to put into a steam sanitizing cycle and run that. And although there's not a white paper on if it's entirely effective or kills all of potential pathogens or harmful vectors, steam is a proven technology for killing germs and bacteria. So providing that additional benefit to our staff was important. Along with the steam sanitizing dryer, we also purchased the specific brand isn't as important, but an upright steamer, which I actually just looked to get a picture for this presentation, and they're all sold out. So it was good that we got out ahead of the curve. And I encourage anybody who's looking to try and keep a clean and tidy workspace, instead of spraying bleach chemicals and having that kind of side the exposure, because that wears on staff that wears on staff as well. If you're out there every day having to spray bleach in the truck, in the car, on your shoes, on the floor, it's a lot of chemical and irritant exposure. So having just a regular steam clean to be able to go in and steam the areas, the locker rooms, and the places where people were working was an excellent a mitigative measure that we instituted. And then finally, the most important, a big kudos to our fleet. So the Municipal Services Fleet Division went out with haste and found one of our pre-existing vendors who also offers a service of sanitizing vehicles. And so twice a week, we have them come out in the evening and go through each one of our sanitation fleet vehicles and sanitize it with a chemical. So if there's anybody interested in that process, feel free to reach out, and I can provide the MSDS sheet and some additional information as to what our process is. But that's kind of the general measures that we've taken. I have to, while I have the floor, I have to take a moment to note, just for the public, if you're out, please spread the word about bagging your garbage for our sanitation workers, for their protection. They've informed me of picking up, tissues and other waste material that in this time especially is, they're still out doing their jobs and getting it done, but anything you can do to help reduce the amount of single items and waste that's flying out in the air. Just for example, if you have a bag, tying it off, because even if you have a bag and don't tie it off, when the lid comes open, the wind blows, sometimes material has a tendency to fly down the street. So we're trying our very best to keep our city and those cities, all the waste professionals, the areas that we work in, top condition. So that's something that you can do that would be a great support. So thank you to that. And that's kind of our overview on ways we've been combating COVID-19 for our solid waste workers.
Thank you so much, Zach. Mary, you are up.
Okay. Let me just get this going. Okay, so can everybody see my screen, my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for having me. My name is Mary, and I am one of the education specialists with the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County. Today, what I'm going to do is share with you an overview of all the ways that we deal with the waste in Palm Beach County. And basically, how we like to start every single program is whether you throw it away, recycle it away, or flush it away, we put all your waste to work. We are the local government agency that was established in 1975 to deal with the entire waste amount that's in our county. And what you're looking at right now is a map of Palm Beach County. We cover it all from up north in Jupiter to Cuesta area, down south to Boca del Rey area where you all are mostly at, and way out west that people forget about, Lake Okeechobee area. We are the largest county size-wise in the state. Population-wise, we are third. And most of you are down here in Boca del Rey. And what you should be asking yourself is, what are these orange boxes that are on this map? So since we're such a large county with so many people, we have to come up with a way efficiently to deal with the waste. So we set up these 6 transfer stations located all around the county. Your nearest one down in Boca is probably the one here on Linton Boulevard that is in East El Rey. And we do have another one in West El Rey that you can access also easily. So what happens is you put your trash or recyclables out at the curb and private haulers come to pick them up. Those are not Solid Waste Authority employees. We contract out the haulers. And they'll bring the material to one of these 6 transfer stations located around the county, the closest ones, and they will load their material into our tractor trailers. And our tractor trailers, if you haven't seen them, hopefully you will. They have our symbol on them now. And they can carry up to about 80,000 pounds of material. That's the equivalent of 5 to 6 of the smaller garbage truckloads worth. So that efficiently moves that material up to us in West Palm Beach where we process it. And just to give you a little bit of perspective and numbers, we have about 1.4 million people living in this county. And on average, every single day, a person produces in our county 12 pounds of solid waste. That includes everything. That's, you know, your trash that you're putting out, your recyclables, your big bulk items, your biosolids that you produce. So everything is calculated into this number. But if you do that math, it ends up equaling close to 17 million pounds of waste that we have to deal with every single day. That's a big number with a lot of zeros, and people can't picture that. So we like to give this visual to you because it kind of hits home. If you can picture a football field. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes.
We're seeing about 2/3 of your screen, actually. Thought it was my issue, but it's not.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you want to maybe close out the presentation, open it back up.
Yeah, sure.
See if that works. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine. I'd rather you guys be able to see everything. Let's see. Is that full screen now?
I am not seeing anything now.
Now you're not seeing anything. Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing. How about now?
I can see your screen, but it's not in presentation mode.
Okay, hold on. Anything now by any chance?
Still your screen, just not the presentation. If for some reason when you put it in presentation mode, it doesn't show the whole
half
screen.
size. Well, I could do it not in presentation mode if that would work.
That would probably be the best.
Okay, so that way we don't have to worry about it. I'll just click through it like this. Is that big enough that you all can see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The only thing is the videos might not work then, but that's okay. I can see if I can play them a different way for you.
Okay.
Okay, so this is good enough. This is big enough. You can see the whole screen, the football field.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So this football field, again, just to give you a visual of how much trash we're dealing with, if you can picture a normal football field and pile that up to your goalposts, the goalposts are about 30 feet high. And if you pile trash up to 27 feet high, that's what we have to manage every single day in our county. So that's a lot of waste. And how do we go about doing that? What you're seeing right now is a footprint, our 1,300 acre footprint of the Solid Waste Authority up at our main facilities on Jog Road in West Palm Beach. So what we have here, we have all our facilities, our 2 landfills, our 2 renewable energy facilities, our recovered materials processing facility, biosolids pelletizer, and even a place for home chemical and hazardous waste. And I'm going to get into all the details about every single one of those facilities so you know what they do. One part that I like to point out also is these colorful little lines on this map. Lots of people don't know that we have a trail system, the Greenway Trail System up by us. We have 300 acres of nature preserve, which includes 5 miles of trails that are open every single day from dawn until dusk. And the only reason we can have them is because of the incredible environmental pollution controls that we have on all of our facilities. This chart just gives you a breakdown. And like I said, I'm going to get into details about all our facilities. So this is just kind of an overview chart. So to start off the top there, we have your recovered materials processing facility. Arrows broken into blue and yellow. What do you think that deals with? That's our recyclables. So we deal with everything that you put in your blue and yellow bins. We have something called a dual stream system here, and I'll explain that more to you guys. And it comes up to us, and the whole purpose of recycling, again, is to save your natural resources. Next is your home chemical and recycling center. That's where you can drop off any of your hazardous materials. You can drop them off at our main facility or at any of our 6 transfer stations around the county. Then renewable energy facilities 1 and 2. We do have 2 waste to energy plants, and the first one was open in 1989. We've been burning trash since then. At that point, we were only burning about 50% of all your trash, though, which meant that 50% was still going to our landfill. And with those numbers, that would mean that our landfills were going to be closed by the year 2020, which it is now. So we had to come up with something else. And that's when Renewable Energy Facility 2 came into the picture. That facility opened in 2015, and now we burn about 93% of all the trash. We send ash to landfill, and that's extended the life of our landfill by a couple of decades until the year about 2053 or so. Next is the biosolids pelletizer. If you remember back to the first slide where I said whether you throw it away, recycle it away, or flush it away, we put all your waste to work. The biosolids pelletizer is where we deal with that flush portion. And the landfill down here, that's our last resort. We are depositing mostly ash there now and non-burnable material. We actually have 2 landfills. We have a class 1, that's where that ash goes, left over from the burning process of the trash. And then the class 3 landfill where your non-burnable material goes, like construction debris. This chart is just a basic breakdown or percentages of the waste that we have in the county for 2018. So that number is important because I have some data from 2019 that I'm going to share with you in a little bit. But these materials going to our waste to energy facilities and recycling are the highest percentages. And now we're going to get into the specifics on how we deal with that at those facilities. So we're going to start by talking about recycling. Recycling is really important, and we have a pretty unique system. I mentioned we're dual stream. That means we have those 2 bins, that blue and yellow bin, and the whole purpose of that is to keep our contamination levels low. So the blue bin, that's things that might have had food or drink in them, usually those types of containers. And the yellow bin is for your paper material, your cardboard. And if you, as a side note, if you guys don't have your blue and yellow bins at home, please give us a call or go to our website and you can request them and we will drop them off for you for free. But now we're going to get into what goes into each bin, because this is where we get a lot of confusion, and we get a lot of people that are wish cycling, where they just kind of put everything into the blue and yellow bins and hope we deal with it. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. We really need you to recycle right at home to make it more efficient for us and to allow us to do our jobs properly. So in the blue bin, things like your plastic bottles, your steel cans, your aluminum cans, glass bottles, your cartons, even though like your milk cartons, those almond milk cartons, orange juice cartons, even though they're cardboard type material, they go into your blue bin because again, they have that food or liquid in them, and we want to keep our paper clean. We want to keep our paper not contaminated with that. So that goes into your blue bin. Drink boxes, not those like Capri Sun pouches or anything, but the little boxes can go into your blue bin also. And some questions we always get is, what about the lids? We always have arguments in households about what you do with the lids on your bottles or your jars. So for your plastic bottles, like your typical water bottle, you want to leave that lid on. It's really small. And if you take it off, we have a lot of moving material, which hopefully you'll be able to see the video in a minute. And those tiny little pieces of plastic can easily get lost in our machines. But something like your glass jars, like your spaghetti sauce and your pickle jars that have that metal cap on them, you're going to want to remove that because the metal gets pulled out separately in a different manner than the glass. Glass ends up being crushed, and that metal, that steel cap, will get pulled out by a big magnet. So we want those taken off. The yellow side, that's pretty simple. Most people get that right. Those are things, you know, paper, your cardboard, any sort of things like that. One question that we usually get, it's at the bottom there, is pizza boxes. So what about pizza boxes? Again, the whole purpose of this dual stream system is to keep our contamination levels low. So if that pizza box has that food grease on it, that cheese, we don't want that. You're going to put that in your trash where it's going to get burnt and turned into clean electricity at our renewable energy facility. So that's a good thing to remember. If it has that food or grease on it, please put it in your trash. But if the top doesn't, you can cut the top off and put that in the yellow bin to get recycled. Now that middle column there, that is a really important part of this slide. That is what we don't want in our bins at all. The first one there, that's our like #1 nemesis, is plastic bags. And I'll come back to that in a second because it's so important. But other things like your styrofoam products, aluminum foil, or those tin pans, it's really thin material, and chances are it's going to get lost. And the other thing is, it's not usually pure aluminum. We love aluminum cans. Aluminum cans are perfect. Put those in your blue bin. But the aluminum foil or those pans, put those in the trash. Other things like shredded paper, your plastic utensils, straws, paper plates, paper towels, and random things that people think go in there because, you know, it's a metal, like your coat hangers. Those are coat hangers are considered something called tanglers, and they'll get twisted in the machines also. Light bulbs, needles. Lots of people, like I said, want to recycle everything, but we like to say, when in doubt, throw it out. If you're not positive it can be recycled, go ahead and throw that out, because again, here in Palm Beach County, it gets turned into clean electricity. Now, plastic bags, like I mentioned, those are really important to keep out of your recycle bins because they will fly around, and with all this moving machinery that we have, they get tangled in that machine. And we have to shut down our operations frequently to have someone actually cut those out by hand. And that's not efficient for us. That's not efficient for the process. And it's not safe, totally safe, to be having to do that all day long. So we ask you to either reuse those bags or don't use them at all, refuse them. You can use your reusable bags. And if you have to use them, if you pay attention to the stores that you go to, chances are at the entrance, there's a place where you can return them and they can actually be recycled correctly. Styrofoam is another option. A lot of places have bins where you could return your styrofoam to. Now, hopefully, we're going to see if we can play this video still. Okay, cool. So this video is going to show you an overview of what goes on in our recovered materials processing facility, how we separate the recyclables once they reach our facility. So our building is separated into blue and yellow side, just like your bins. We're going to start with the blue side. That's your plastics, your metals, your glass. And the first thing we do is pull out ferrous metals or your steel with a big magnet. We have people all along the line pulling out contaminants. You can see that again, because lots of people put stuff in their bins that they think is recyclable. We have something called an eddy system current that pulls out aluminum by static electricity. We have, sorry, I just got a message on my computer. We have an optical sorter to separate plastics based on density, and we have glass that's then crushed. We end up creating these big bales. We wrap them with steel twine and ship them out to be recycled into new materials. On the paper and cardboard side, that's your yellow side, same thing. We have people pulling out contaminants all along the line. The first step that we go through is separating the cardboard from paper. That's pretty simple. It goes across a star screen, and that cardboard dances on top while the paper falls to the bottom. Then what happens is we have something called a trommel that will actually spin out small material that we don't want mixed in with the paper that can damage it. That is stuff like sand, your gravel, or little pieces of glass that could damage it. We have also seen an increase in the amount of cardboard that we get. That's because it's really easy to shop online. So, people buy stuff online, it shows up in boxes, and we recycle those boxes. Same thing, we end up creating those bales of your paper or your cardboard, wrap them with that steel twine, and then ship them off to be recycled into new materials. Now, just to give you some more specific information about recycling in Palm Beach County and in the city of Boca. In 2008, the Energy, Climate Change, and Economic Security Act passed, which established a new state recycling goal of 75% to be achieved by this year, by 2020. And waste to energy is included in that. And we're lucky we have 2 waste to energy facilities. So that increases our calculated recycling rate. And as of 2019, Palm Beach County had a state calculated recycling rate of 73%, which is great. It ranks us 4th in the state. The only counties above us are Lee, Pinellas, and Charlotte. But keep in mind, our population, again, is 1.4 million people. So it's hard to reach that many residents and to get the full, it's hard for to calculate that number, because it's not just what we're receiving in our facility, but it's everything the county is doing. So to get in touch with all those businesses and programs that are recycling to calculate that, it's a really difficult task to do. One other program I want to mention is the Municipal Revenue Share Program. So the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County started this program in 2010. And since then, municipalities, cities around the county have shared more than $9.5 million. The whole purpose of this program is to reward our municipal partners for the role they play in promoting and supporting our recycling. So the net revenue that's received from marketing our recyclables, selling them via brokers, is shared with the municipalities after our net processing costs. So basically what happens is we have material delivered to the Solid Waste Authority, we sell those commodities out to be recycled, and the revenue generated, we remove, like I said, those excess costs, and then we share that money with the cities based on the weight of material that they're bringing in. So by Boca residents recycling right, they help your city get the maximum recycling revenue share. And since this program has started in 2010, City of Boca has recycled more than 70,000 tons of recyclables and received more than $1.4 million, which is pretty awesome for you guys. You guys are in a really close battle with West Palm Beach for giving the most material and receiving the most dollars for that material. So keep recycling right so you guys can keep battling it out with West Palm Beach. Next, we're moving on to your hazardous materials. This includes everything, and I'm not sure if this little animation is going to work, but things like your propane tanks, your light bulbs, old electronics, anything that you might have at home that is slightly hazardous, you can drop off at one of our 6 transfer stations or our main facility up in West Palm Beach. One thing that's hazardous that people don't always think about is paint. And paint, we do something really neat with. We will recycle that paint into 12 different colors and use it out in the community if people need help painting the exterior of their homes. It's a volunteer program we have called Paint Your Heart Out. So that's something that's really interesting to get involved in. Next is one of my favorite parts of our entire operations. It's our renewable energy facilities. So I did mention that we have 2, and Renewable Energy 1, like I said, opened in 1989. It's slightly different technology. Renewable Energy 2 opened in 2015, and it is the greenest facility in North America. We process about 3,000 tons of trash a day in our boilers there. Each boiler, we have 3 boilers in Renewable Energy Facility 2, and each boiler processes 1,000 tons. So we're doing a lot of work. We're taking something that people don't want, your trash, and turning it into clean electricity. And this video is going to show you exactly how we do that. So first, what you're going to see is those tractor trailers driving up from up to our tipping floor from the ramp there, and they're coming from one of those 6 transfer stations. Now, the truck will actually push the material out the back via something called a walking floor, and that's so their trucks don't have to tip up. They can just push that material right out into our pit. Our pit can hold up to about a week's worth of Palm Beach County's trash, and the wall on the side where the truck is about 40 feet deep, and across from that is about 100 feet deep. So it's a really large pit of trash. Now in the control room, you'll see one of our claw operators moving one of our claws. We have 3 of them. They're called grapples, and each claw can hold about 9 tons of trash. And besides the claw operators, we have other engineers there looking at all sorts of data coming in from every point of our power plant, including temperature, pressure, steam, emissions, everything. So what the claws are doing are fluffing the trash, mixing the trash, because we want to burn it, and we need a good mix of material in order to do that. Once they get a good mix, like I said, they can hold up to 9 tons of trash. They will move it over to the entrance to our boilers, and that's called our hopper. They will drop it in very slowly, and that fire burns about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the whole purpose, again, is to create steam at this point. Along the walls of the boilers are tubes, and those tubes are carrying water. And if it heats up really hot, it turns into steam. That steam is going to get piped through all of this networking of pipes you see here into our turbine and generator room. The turbine is the thing to the left that kind of looks like a jet engine, and that the blades spinning that go through a rotor into our generator, where we produce enough electricity to power about 70 to 75,000 homes, in addition to all of our facilities on Jog Road. Now what you're looking at is the ACC, or our air-cooled condenser. Like I mentioned, we are the greenest facility, so we don't want to waste anything, and that includes steam. So that steam that we use to turn the blades in the turbine, we pass over these fans. We have 15 of them, and they're 36 feet across. Cools the steam down back into water, where we can pump it right back into our facilities. Air pollution is another thing that you should be really concerned about. When I told you how much trash we're burning, I'm going to pause this right here for a second, because this gives you a good view of pan view of our air pollution control systems. So we have 4 main things that we do. The first thing we do is we inject something called powder activated carbon into the flue gas. The flue gas is what's coming off your fire, basically. And that powder activated carbon is going to neutralize our mercury. The second thing we have are located in those big cylinder-like things that you can see on the screen there. Those are called dry scrubbers. And what we do is inject a lime slurry, and that's going to neutralize sulfur oxides. And for anybody who's not a chemist, sulfur oxides are your main component in acid rain. So you don't want us releasing that into the atmosphere. Next, we have a series of baghouse filters. And if you've ever sat around a campfire or even lit a candle and you see that smoke coming off, that smoke is caused by particulate matter. And if we're burning 3,000 tons of trash in this facility every day, you don't want that particular matter from the trash entering our atmosphere. So we collect that in the baghouse filters and dispose of that. Then the last thing we have is called a selective catalytic reductive system, which nobody else in North America has. It is how we take out our nitric oxides. And again, for the non-chemists out there, that's your main component in smog. So if you ever seen that thin layer of like yellowness over like pictures of LA or New York City, that's what you don't want us releasing, and that's caused by those nitric oxides. The last part here is the ash. Ash gets sent over to our ash management building, because you'll see there's some big pieces in there. Those are things like metals that aren't going to burn, right? But we still want to recycle them because they're metals and they're good to be recycled. So they go over to ash management. Those metals get pulled out and we recycle those, and then the ash will get sent over to our landfill. Now, moving on to our biosolids pelletizer. This is always a fun one to talk about. This is where we deal with that flush. So when you flush a toilet in Palm Beach County, it goes to a wastewater treatment plant. They're going to take out all of that liquid material and send us the solids. We get about 600 wet tons of sludge a day. We heat that sludge up with methane gas that's produced in our landfill. So we use that and we turn it into an eco-friendly fertilizer. And this is what it ends up looking like. It's little pellets. It's just a regular fertilizer. But thank you for your daily contributions to us. I bet you didn't realize that we put even that type of waste to work. The last resort that we have for all the waste in Palm Beach County is our landfill. I mentioned we have 2 landfills, and that D word, dump, is a really bad word for us. Ours are not considered dumps. A dump is basically a hole in the ground where people throw trash. Ours is a clean sanitary landfill. And in order to get that, we have to do some things. And this chart here shows you the different levels that we do in order to make it clean. First, we start off by putting down a primary and secondary liner. That's really thick plastic. And again, that's to prevent anything from getting into our groundwater or our soil. Another thing that we have is this piping system here called a leachate collection system. Leachate is one of those scientific words for garbage juice, basically. If you've ever taken out your trash and you walk down the driveway and stuff starts leaking all over the place, that's garbage juice. And again, you don't want that getting into your groundwater. So we pipe that off, we treat it and dispose of that separately. And then we build what we affectionately call our garbage lasagna, or it's kind of like a layer cake. So every day there's a soil layer. Then this material in the middle there, that bluish material there on the chart, is your ash. That's what we're disposing of mostly in our class 1 landfill, or that non-burnable material, that construction debris or stuff that's too big to fit into our boilers in our class 3 landfill. And what we'll do is we build that up to 160 feet before that section is closed and we cap it. Notice on here, we also have a pipe coming out for methane. Again, we use the majority of our methane over in our biosolids pelletizer to heat that sludge up and turn it into that eco-friendly fertilizer. And if there's any excess methane, we will actually burn that off. It's called a flare, and that's so we're not releasing it into the atmosphere because it's a really potent greenhouse gas. But when we reach that 165 feet and it is capped and our landfills are filled, what do we do with it then? We actually give them back to the community. So we'll put another liner on top and heat seal it, kind of like a Tupperware container. And then we can turn it into things like Dyer Park, which is up in West Palm Beach, or Park Ridge Golf Course, which is off Lantana Road. Here's a hint. If you see big hills in Florida, chances are it's an old landfill. We're a very flat state elevation-wise, so any very large hill that you see is most likely an old landfill. The last thing, last but not least, definitely not least, is that trail system. We do have that amazing 5 miles of trails because of all those environmental pollution controls that we have, and all the monitoring that we do. So we have 300 acres and the trails are open from dawn till dusk. If you're interested in seeing any of the wildlife that's out there, we do have a trail camera program, and we post the highlights from them on our Facebook and our YouTube, so you can check those out too. They're really neat to see. I totally recommend coming out to our trail system, and you can get some great views of our renewable energy facility as you walk around the trails also. And the way we like to end every single program, and you guys mentioned it to start off this entire thing, which was great. The 3 environmental R's that everybody knows: reduce, reuse, recycle. But at the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, we actually added a 4th R, and it's called rethink. And that's because we're dealing with that 17 million pounds of waste every single day. So if you can rethink one thing, maybe not use a plastic water bottle, use a reusable one. Maybe not get the plastic bag today at the grocery store, bring your canvas ones with you. One thing every single day to reduce your impact on the waste stream. That's what we're asking you guys to do. So if you have any questions, or if you're interested in any of our other environmental programs also, you can check out our website at www.swa.org/education, and that will give you a link to all of our educational programs. Through this virtual world that we're living in now, we have lots of information out there for everybody. We have behind the scenes looks at renewable energy facility and our recovered materials processing facility if you're interested in any of that. We have stuff for younger kids too, so check it out. There's a lot of good information out there. So if anybody has any questions now.
Thank you so much, Mary. I really, really appreciate you presenting that. And I like that, adding the rethink. Our Gumbo Limbo Nature Center, which is our sea turtle hospital facility, have a campaign they do that says refuse, because of the plastic that they see in the environment and the impact that has on the turtles that they're treating. And it's really that same thing, just
exactly
to refuse the materials that aren't working for us.
Yeah,
So
we've heard a lot of different the 4th R's. We like rethink, like I said, just because it gets people thinking about everything they can do.
Right. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the virtual tour. I've been lucky enough to be able to go get a real tour or an in-person, this is a real tour, an in-person tour twice. And I learn something new every time I go, even though I sort of, I work in this field and I feel like I know a lot about this. Every time I go, you guys definitely show us something new we didn't know. And it's really fascinating.
Exactly. I mean, when we open back up again to the public, I totally recommend people signing up for it. We do community tours that are open to individuals and families. And once they're up and going again, there'll be links on our website. Again, so go to that website, SWA.org, and you'll be able to find all the tour information when we start doing that again. But right now, like I said, it's all virtual, so it is shorter. I have to keep everything into like half an hour, but our tours are about 2 hours long. There is a lot of information that we get out there to the public through them.
Yeah, and I know last year the city of Boca Raton did do a field trip for residents up there. And so once we're back to doing things in person, perhaps we can look into doing that again.
Yeah.
So we do have a few questions.
Sure.
The first one you addressed a little bit with the biosolid pelletization, but the question was who controls where the biosolids can be dumped, and specifically with concern to impact to water. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about what happens to the biosolids.
So, Willie, if you're on here, you might know the more specifics about this because I know there's different levels of biosolid pellets, but I don't know the specifics behind them.
So I've unmuted you, Willie, if you want to speak. You may have to unmute yourself also.
There you go. I said that was a great presentation by everybody, and it's great to be able to talk to you, and that's a great question to ask about biosolids. So biosolids, as Mary was saying, there's a class B, there's a class A, and there's a class AA. And that all depends on how well they're treated and how many of the pathogens are removed. So at our facility, we process it down to a class AA, which is like the best environmentally friendly pellet that you can. And then directly to answer the question of where it goes, I cannot answer that. And the reason is because our processor is NEFCO, which is the New England Fertilizer Company, and they own that product whenever it's produced. So they have their own distribution nationwide of where it could go. So what we understand where it can go is that it could be land applied on certain farms. It could be mixed with other products to create a fertilizer product itself that you could buy off the shelf. So we don't necessarily know exactly where it goes. We know generally where it goes. But also understand that there are strict rules and guidelines for South Florida of the types of biosolids and where you can place different levels of biosolids. So I guess the biggest concern has been when South Florida cut off the land application of biosolids, the next closest county was Indian River County. And there's been a lot of legislation proposed to stop the sludge application, which is the class B, which is the raw sludge, on the farms there, just because of the proximity to water and how that water flow goes into estuaries and the ocean. But yes, we do have a very good program. We create a very clean product, and it is used for land application.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to add too, on our end, it's not biosolids, but our wastewater, the city of Boca Raton, just to give our utility services a bit of a plug, has a 100% reuse water system. So all of our wastewater is treated and used as irrigation too, which helps us reduce any nutrient pollution into our waterways. So the next question, which might be to Willie too, is about the new regulations with China. It says, given the shipments of recycled stuff to China has been significantly curtailed, is our recycling program at risk?
Great question.
Okay.
I wonder if there's been a lot of discussion about this, especially when the New York Times wrote an article. There's been a lot of news stories, network news stories about how there's such a problem with recycling, but in Palm Beach County, we're good. And it's because we have the dual stream program, and it's because each of the residents are recycling right. So what happens with the different recycling programs, and Mary touched on it. We have the dual stream program, again, blue and yellow bin, self-separated at home. But the problem comes in when, well, let me take a step back. Our contamination rate is about 8 to 9%. So that means 8 to 9% of stuff that people, residents, put in their recycle bins are contaminant. So the biggest problem that we see with the contamination is multifamily communities, where they just have the big cans and they put everything in one, and maybe you had a bad day and you got the garbage in your hand and it's raining, and the first can you see is a recycling. You're throwing your trash in there anyways because you want to get out of the rain and you want to get back to your home. So that's part of the problem that we see. And it's the same thing that happens with the single stream communities, where they have the one big can and they put the paper, the plastic, the glass, the aluminum, the cardboard, everything in that can. Well, that can, because it's so big, becomes another garbage can. And their contamination rate in the state of Florida is 25%, but in some areas of the country, it's upwards of 45 to 50%. And there's no way that you can, any processor, whether you're hand picking or automated, can reduce down to what China's 0.5% is. So a lot of that stuff is very contaminated. Nobody wants it, or else they're getting a very low dollar value for it. But in Palm Beach County, we're doing really good. So just keep up the good work, Boca residents.
Thank you. So the last two questions are really just statements. One saying the Greenway trails are awesome, so thank you. And that overall, you all are doing a great job, and that they're proud of what you're accomplishing. So very nicely done. I have a question, which is just if you could leave here with just anything you want people to take away from this presentation, like one thing, what would that be?
One thing, I think I'm going to stick with the rethink, because that's why we like to end on that. Usually the last thing you say is what sticks with people. That picture that we show of that football field piled with trash, it's hard to imagine. And you've been there, so you've seen our pit of trash. When you see that and you actually, in person see all this trash in front of you and what we're dealing with, it's a lot. So if that one little thing you can do every single day to change that, to decrease what, where we have to manage, would be phenomenal. Other thing is, like I said, check out all our educational programs, because there's so many details I couldn't get into in this short time period that we go into in all those educational programs we have posted for you. So, and if you're watching them, you can comment on them on Facebook and we'll answer your questions there if you come up with stuff. Or you can shoot us an email at education@swa.org and one of the education specialists will get back to you. Or if it's something really technical, like the level of biosolid pellets that I wasn't sure about, I'll get, someone to answer those for you.
Awesome, thank you so much. And just for our attendees, also in the chat box, I put a link to the city's webpage with our webinar that we did last month on for Plastic Free July. So if you want some tips on how we can rethink and reduce, that's available there. On the sustainability pages too are some instructions and resources for composting, which is another way that we can reduce a little bit of what SWA is managing. And also I posted a link to the recycling pages at SWA, because I am on there all the time. They have really great resources where you can just type in the thing you're trying to get rid of and they can tell you where to take it. And not everything can be recycled in the blue or yellow bins, but a lot of things can be recycled. So that's a really great resource. So Mary and Willie as well, thank you so much for taking the time today, and thank you everyone who attended. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.